When Japan first opened up their borders and was introduced into Western culture, more specifically the USA, Japan quickly learned the difference between American football and soccer. They also grew to despise the USA and their culture because it was a direct threat to the Japanese way of life. And the Americans grew to hate the Japanese because they were stealing all of their technology and putting it in their cars and planes. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of animosity between both sides. This hatred eventually led to thousands of deaths. And this is that story. It's December 7th of 1941. Japan has just bombed Pearl Harbor, a small military base owned by the United States of America, killing 2,000 plus people. Japan did this because they were preparing for a war with the USA. On December 8th, Japan bombed the Philippines, which was only 200 miles away from Hawaii. This made everyone start to panic even more. On December 10th, the Japanese bombed Wake Island, Guam, and many other places in the Pacific Ocean. The world was in awe at the sheer power of Japan. In a desperate attempt to stop Japan, the United States got together and decided that they should have the strongest man in the world fight them, the King of England, Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill and his army of men charged into Japan on the 17th of February of 1942. They were ready to fight to their deaths to ensure the demise of Japan. They had a great plan. They would break through the lines and sneak into Tokyo. Once there, they would convince Hirohito that they were good guys and not here to attack him. Once Winston Churchill and his army were behind enemy lines, they set up a camp in a small town called Hakone. They stayed hidden until they were ready to move out. However, on March 5th, the Japanese finally found them. They surrounded the entire group, but Winston Churchill and his army were ready. They used their bayonets and their swords to cut the ropes holding them down. They jumped over the walls and ran as fast as possible to get away from the Japanese. They eventually got to an abandoned house. They hid in a closet, waiting for the next morning. When they left the closet, the abandoned house was full of blood and corpses. It turned out the whole of the Japanese army had been killed, and the only survivor was a little boy named George W. Bush. That was the Great Bush Tragedy of 1942. In 1943, Japan had seemingly stopped its mission to take over the world. The United States was worried about this, however, because they thought Japan was preparing to do something insane, and that is exactly what Japan was doing. Japan had been secretly manufacturing a weapon of mass destruction that they could use to take over the world. This weapon was called the Death Star. On December 9th of 1944, the Japanese prepared to attack the United States of America with their mighty Death Star. As the Death Star charged up its deathly laser beam, William Shatner and his group of humans arrived in their spaceships at the Death Star moments before it was to destroy the United States of America. Equipped with the strongest weapons that they could afford, William Shatner and his group of humans fought as hard as they could to destroy the Japanese Death Star before it could destroy the United States of America. But nothing was working. That was until they heard from one of their spies that someone named Boba Fett was coming to help them, and he did just that.
I have come to kill your Death Star.
With his trusty lightsaber, Boba Fett sliced through the Death Star like butter. With this victory, the United States was saved, and the Death Star was destroyed forever. In conclusion, the history between America and Japan is complicated. And this video didn't even begin to cover all the nuances between the countries. There are many factors involved in why the relationship between America and Japan is what it is today. However, I believe the most important thing to remember is that both countries are now allies.
Even if there is still some tension between the two countries, we should always remember our shared history.